The vast emptiness of space stretched before the observation deck of the Concordance flagship, a cathedral of technological marvel that represented centuries of scientific achievement. Captain Zora Vex studied the holographic displays with an intensity that belied her species' typically calm demeanor. Her multi-jointed fingers, each tipped with a sensory node that could detect microscopic changes in electromagnetic fields, hovered just above the translucent controls. The stellar concordance had explored thousands of star systems, encountered hundreds of emerging civilizations, and prided themselves on a peaceful, methodical approach to galactic diplomacy. Their civilization was built on understanding, on careful observation, and on the principle that knowledge could always be negotiated. Today would be different. The quantum sensors had been picking up an anomalous technological signature for several standard cycles. At first, it seemed like nothing more than background radiation or a minor gravitational disturbance. But as the hours passed, the signature became more defined, more intentional. "Computational analysis complete," announced the ship's central intelligence, its voice a melodic blend of harmonic frequencies designed to be both informative and emotionally neutral. "The technological signature does not match any known species in our extensive galactic database." Zora leaned closer to the holographic projection. The image was unlike anything she had seen before. Angular lines that seemed to defy traditional spacecraft design principles. Armor plating that appeared to shimmer with an almost organic responsiveness. No smooth curves, no elegant biological symmetry that characterized most advanced spacefaring civilizations. This was something else entirely. Her second-in-command, Commander Lix, approached with measured steps. The slight vibration of his neural tendrils indicated a mix of excitement and apprehension. "The mathematical probability of this being a new species is 98.7%, he reported. "Our long-range scanners indicate a vessel of significant technological complexity, yet with design principles that suggest a relatively young spacefaring civilization." The bridge crew watched in collective anticipation. The Concordance had encountered numerous emerging species before, but none had quite this level of technological signature. Most young civilizations showed predictable patterns, rudimentary faster-than-light capabilities, basic energy shielding, communication systems that were more hopeful than effective. This vessel was different. Its energy signature suggested capabilities far beyond what its external design might indicate. There were subtle modulations in its power output that hinted at adaptive technologies, systems that could reconfigure themselves in milliseconds. The armor plating seemed to have a dynamic molecular structure, capable of redistributing energy and structural integrity in ways that defied current scientific understanding. "Initiate standard first contact protocol," Captain Vex commanded, her voice calm and measured. A series of sophisticated scanning drones prepared for deployment. These were not simple mechanical probes, but complex quantum-entangled devices capable of gathering comprehensive data without physical intrusion. Each drone represented the pinnacle of Concordance scientific achievement, able to analyze molecular structures, energy signatures, and potential communication frequencies almost instantaneously. The bridge fell into a hushed silence. Young species often reacted unpredictably to first contact. Some with fear, some with aggression, some with a mixture of wonder and terror. The Concordance had protocols for every potential scenario, diplomatic responses carefully crafted over millennia of peaceful exploration. But something about this approaching vessel suggested that their carefully prepared scenarios might not apply. Its movement was too precise, its approach too calculated. Where most emerging species would show uncertainty, even excitement, this vessel moved with a sense of purpose that was almost unsettling. It was as if the ship itself was a living entity, aware and prepared. "Scan complete," the Central Intelligence announced. "Vessel identified as human. Origin point. Sol system. Technological classification. Emerging spacefaring civilization with advanced defensive capabilities." Commander Lix turned to the captain, his neural tendrils now vibrating with a mix of curiosity and something that, for his species, was remarkably close to concern. "They're not like the others," he observed quietly. Captain Vex nodded, her gaze fixed on the approaching vessel. The universe was about to change, and somewhere in the cold, vast darkness of space, humanity was making its first true impression on the galactic stage. Communication protocols hummed to life across the bridge of the Concordance flagship. The quantum communication array, a marvel of technological sophistication, began its intricate process of establishing first contact. Linguistic algorithms spun into motion, ready to decode, translate, and interpret any incoming transmission with microscopic precision. Commander Lix watched the translation matrices with professional intensity. The Concordance had developed communication technologies that could interpret linguistic patterns from even the most obscure species. They'd prided themselves on their ability to understand, to bridge gaps, to find common ground. The first transmission came with unexpected directness. "Stellar Concordance vessel, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth diplomatic vessel Prometheus," the message announced. Each word carried a crisp clarity that immediately caught the attention of every bridge officer. The human language translated with remarkable simplicity. No elaborate preliminary greetings, no complex diplomatic preamble, just a straightforward identification and purpose. "We appreciate the opportunity for peaceful first contact," the transmission continued, "but we also believe in clear, direct communication." Captain Zara Vex leaned forward, her sensory nodes tingling with an unusual sense of intrigue. The subtle emphasis on peaceful was not lost on her. It was both an invitation and a warning, a delicate balance that suggested a sophisticated understanding of interstellar communication. "Prepare full linguistic and cultural analysis," she commanded softly. The ship's central intelligence began processing the transmission with lightning speed. Language patterns, vocal stress modulations, communication structure, everything was analyzed in milliseconds. What emerged was a fascinating profile that defied the Concordance's typical expectations of an emerging spacefaring civilization. The human communication style suggested a species that valued transparency, directness, and mutual understanding, but with an underlying current of preparedness. It was as if every word was carefully chosen, every phrase a calculated move in a complex diplomatic chess game. Commander Lix's neural tendrils shifted in a pattern that, for his species, indicated profound curiosity. "Their communication approach is remarkably complex," he observed. "They're not just sending a message, they're making a statement." The linguistic algorithms continued to parse the transmission, revealing layers of nuanced communication. The human captain's voice carried no trace of nervousness, no hint of the typical uncertainty found in most first contact scenarios. Instead, there was a calm professionalism that spoke of extensive preparation and a deep understanding of potential interstellar interactions. Cultural analysis modules began compiling information. Fragments of human historical data streamed across secondary displays. Wars, conflicts, technological leaps, moments of incredible cooperation, and equally incredible division. A species that had repeatedly faced extinction-level challenges and emerged not just surviving, but advancing. "Prepare our response," Captain Vex instructed. "But be precise. Every word matters." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Communication with a new species was always a delicate dance. Too formal, and you risked appearing distant. Too casual, and you might be perceived as weak. The Concordance had perfected this art over millennia of peaceful exploration. Yet something about this human transmission suggested that their usual approaches might not apply. The Prometheus maintained its position with a stability that spoke of advanced navigation systems. Its external configuration continued to puzzle the Concordance sensors. Modular armor plating that seemed to shimmer with potential, weapon ports carefully masked but unmistakably present, a design that suggested both diplomatic intent and defensive capability. "Transmission prepared," announced the communication specialist. Captain Vex nodded, her multi-jointed fingers hovering over the communication controls. The universe seemed to hold its breath for a moment. a single transmission that could define the relationship between two species for generations to come. Whatever happened next would be more than just a first contact. It would be a moment that would reshape understanding of what it meant to exist in the vast, complex tapestry of galactic civilization. A message was sent. The scanning drone left the Concordance flagship with calculated precision. A marvel of technological engineering, it represented the pinnacle of the species' non-invasive exploration capabilities. Quantum-entangled sensors hummed with sophisticated detection arrays, designed to gather comprehensive data without physical intrusion. At the heart of the Concordance's first contact philosophy was a fundamental belief in peaceful observation. Their drones were not weapons but windows, sophisticated tools meant to understand, to learn, to bridge the gap between unknown civilizations. On the bridge of the flagship, Captain Zara Vex watched the drone's trajectory with professional calm. Commander Lix monitored the sensor feeds, his neural tendrils dancing across holographic displays that mapped every microscopic detail of the drone's approach. The human vessel, Prometheus, remained perfectly motionless. Its hull continued to defy conventional understanding. Armor plating that seemed to breathe, weapon systems that remained elegantly concealed yet unmistakably present. Initiating comprehensive scan, the drone's central intelligence announced. Quantum sensors extended, preparing to map the human vessel's external and internal structures. Advanced energy detection systems began probing, seeking to understand the vessel's technological composition. It was a delicate process, developed over centuries of careful exploration. What happened next occurred in less than 3 seconds. A precision energy burst erupted from the Prometheus. It was not a random discharge or a defensive reaction. The response was calculated, surgical, and absolute. The scanning drone simply ceased to exist, not damaged, not disabled, but completely obliterated with such precision that no debris remained. Silence fell across the Concordance bridge. Scan attempt terminated, the ship's central intelligence reported, its melodic voice carrying an unusual undertone that might have been interpreted as surprise, if the Concordance had emotional languages capable of such nuance. Commander Lix's neural tendrils vibrated with an intensity that suggested profound recalculation. The human vessel's response exceeds our predictive models by several orders of magnitude, he observed. Captain Vex remained motionless, her sensory nodes processing the implications. This was not an aggressive act in the traditional sense. It was a statement, a clear, unequivocal communication that transcended verbal language. The weapon system that had destroyed the drone was not just advanced. It was a message written in the universal language of technological capability. "We are aware," it said. "We are prepared. Do not mistake our willingness to communicate for vulnerability." Tactical displays began updating rapidly. The Prometheus had not just destroyed a scanning drone. It had done so with a level of precision that suggested multiple layers of technological sophistication. The energy burst had been so precisely calculated that it left no residual radiation, no electromagnetic signature that could be traced or analyzed. Recalibrating threat assessment, the ship's intelligence announced. Cultural analysis modules began working overtime. Historical data about human conflict, technological development, and interspecies interactions scrolled across secondary displays. A species that had repeatedly transformed potential extinction events into opportunities for growth. A civilization that viewed challenges not as obstacles, but as problems to be solved. The scanning drone's destruction was more than a defensive action. It was a form of communication. "They are telling us exactly who they are," Captain Vex murmured, more to herself than to anyone else on the bridge. Commander Lix turned, his neural tendrils creating complex patterns that suggested a mix of professional fascination and genuine respect. "Shall we respond?" he asked. The universe seemed to hold its breath. One moment of miscalculation could transform a potential diplomatic encounter into something far more consequential. The Concordance had spent millennia avoiding conflict, believing that understanding could always be negotiated. Humanity seemed to be offering a different approach entirely. Captain Vex's fingers hovered above the communication controls. Whatever happened next would define not just this encounter, but potentially the entire future of their galactic interactions. The Prometheus waited, patient, prepared, unapologetically itself. Space itself seemed to ripple and shift. Where moments before there had been a single human vessel, now 5 additional ships materialized with impossible precision. They didn't emerge gradually or approach from a distance. They simply existed, as if the fabric of space had folded and refolded to accommodate their arrival. Each vessel was distinctly different, yet part of a cohesive whole. They moved with a synchronicity that suggested something beyond traditional formation flying, a level of coordination that spoke of something deeper, more fundamental. On the Concordance flagship's bridge, every sensor array strained to comprehend the sudden appearance. Quantum displacement analysis inconclusive, announced the ship's central intelligence. The melodic voice carried an unusual undertone, something remarkably close to uncertainty. Captain Zara Vex leaned forward, her multi-jointed fingers hovering above holographic displays that struggled to categorize the new arrivals. The initial human vessel, the Prometheus, now sat at the center of a formation that defied conventional military or diplomatic positioning. One vessel bore sharp, predatory lines, clearly a combat-oriented design with weapon systems that seemed to pulse with potential energy. Another appeared more versatile, its modular configuration suggesting adaptive capabilities beyond current scientific understanding. A third seemed designed for long-range operations, its hull studded with sensor arrays that hinted at reconnaissance capabilities. Commander Lix's neural tendrils vibrated with an intensity that suggested profound recalculation. Their technological capabilities exceed our most advanced predictive models, he observed, professional fascination threading through his words. The communication systems came alive with a transmission that was both a greeting and a statement of intent. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth diplomatic vessel Prometheus," the message began, its clarity cutting through the quantum communication channels. "We value peaceful interaction, but we are equally prepared for any alternative." The subtle emphasis on prepared was not lost on the Concordance bridge crew. It was a masterclass in diplomatic communication, an invitation wrapped in a warning, a promise of cooperation balanced with an unmistakable display of capability. Historical analysis modules began compiling information about human military and diplomatic history, conflicts resolved through negotiation and force, technological leaps born from moments of extreme challenge, a species that had repeatedly transformed potential extinction events into opportunities for growth. "Tactical assessment," Captain Vex commanded. Holographic displays populated with rapidly updating information. Each human vessel carried weapon systems that seemed to defy traditional understanding. Energy signatures that could be reconfigured in milliseconds. Adaptive armor that could redistribute defensive capabilities with liquid-smooth precision. This was not just a show of force. It was a comprehensive demonstration of technological and strategic capability. The 5 vessels moved with a synchronicity that suggested something beyond traditional fleet coordination. Their positioning was a language of its own, a complex 3-dimensional statement that communicated preparedness, unity, and an almost primal understanding of spatial dynamics. "They're not just showing us their capabilities," Commander Lix murmured. "They're demonstrating their philosophy." Captain Vex nodded almost imperceptibly. The human vessels were more than technological marvels. They were a living representation of a species that viewed potential conflict not with fear, but with a calculated, almost mathematical approach to survival and interaction. The Concordance had encountered hundreds of spacefaring civilizations. They had developed communication protocols for peaceful engagement, for cultural exchange, for understanding. Humanity seemed to be writing an entirely new set of rules. Recommendation. The captain's question hung in the air, a delicate moment of potential transformation. The universe held its breath. 5 human vessels waited. The Concordance flagship maintained its position. Thousands of years of diplomatic history balanced on the edge of a single moment. First contact was no longer just a possibility. It was an inevitability. The historical archives began to paint a remarkable picture. Layers of human history unfolded across the Concordance flagship's analytical displays, revealing a species that defied conventional understanding of evolutionary progress. Humanity's journey was not a smooth trajectory of peaceful development. It was a complex tapestry of conflict, innovation, and relentless adaptation. Where other species might have been broken by global challenges, humans transformed adversity into opportunity. Climate catastrophes had not destroyed them, but prompted unprecedented technological innovations. Global conflicts had not ended their civilization, but accelerated their technological development. Biological challenges had not defeated them, but pushed the boundaries of medical and genetic understanding. Commander Lix watched the historical compilation with growing fascination. The human species appeared to be a living contradiction, simultaneously destructive and creative, capable of extreme violence and profound compassion. Adaptive capacity exceeds all previous galactic species models, the ship's Central Intelligence reported. Planetary records showed how humans had transformed nearly uninhabitable environments. They had developed agricultural systems in desert regions, created sustainable cities in extreme climates, and engineered solutions to challenges that would have defeated other civilizations. Their technological progression was particularly noteworthy. Unlike most spacefaring species that develop technologies through gradual, careful research, humans seemed to innovate through a combination of desperate necessity and unbridled creativity. Space exploration was not a carefully planned diplomatic endeavor for them. It was an extension of their fundamental drive to explore, to understand, to push beyond existing boundaries. The analytical displays revealed multiple pivotal moments, technological leaps that seemed to emerge from seemingly impossible circumstances, medical breakthroughs developed under extreme pressure, communication systems invented during global conflicts. Each challenge became an opportunity for growth. Captain Zaravek studied the information with professional intensity. The human approach to survival was fundamentally different from the Concordance's methodical, consensus-driven development. Where her species would debate and analyze, humans appeared to act, quickly, decisively, sometimes recklessly, but never without purpose. Military historical analysis was particularly illuminating. Humans did not simply fight conflicts. They studied them, learned from them, transformed their entire societal structures based on each challenge. Wars became catalysts for technological and social innovation. Their defensive systems were not just technological marvels. They were living proof of a species that had turned conflict into an evolutionary advantage. They viewed challenges as problems to be solved. Commander Lix observed, his neural tendrils creating complex patterns of professional fascination, not as obstacles to be avoided. The ship's cultural analysis modules continued compiling information. Humanity's approach to survival was holistic. Technological innovation intertwined with social adaptation, military capability balanced with diplomatic complexity. Their spacecraft reflected this philosophy perfectly. Each vessel was not just a technological achievement, but a statement of capability. Modular designs that could be reconfigured in moments. Weapon systems that were also scientific platforms. Defensive capabilities that doubled as research tools. Most fascinating was their approach to potential conflict. Unlike species that sought to avoid confrontation at all costs, humans seem to view potential conflicts as complex problems requiring comprehensive solutions. The Prometheus and its accompanying vessels continued to maintain their position with a calm precision that suggested complete understanding of the moment. Control, preparation, an almost mathematical approach to potential interaction that transcended traditional diplomatic understanding. The Concordance was beginning to realize that first contact with humanity would be unlike any encounter in galactic history. The psychology of human preparedness revealed itself through communication channels that defied conventional diplomatic understanding. Where most species relied on elaborate communication protocols, humans demonstrated a stark, almost surgical approach to potential interaction. Intercepted communication logs painted a fascinating portrait. Every potential scenario seemed to have been anticipated, analyzed, and prepared for with mathematical precision. Contingency plans nested within contingency plans, creating a multi-layered approach to potential conflict that was both terrifying and remarkable. Captain Zara Vex watched the communication analysis with growing professional fascination. The human communication systems were not just channels of information. They were complex strategic platforms. Observe the communication structure, Commander Lix suggested, his neural tendrils creating intricate patterns of analytical interest. Each transmission carried multiple layers of meaning. What seemed like a simple exchange of information was actually a carefully constructed communication matrix. Technical details were interwoven with strategic implications. Diplomatic language was balanced with unmistakable indications of defensive capability. The Concordants had developed communication technologies over millennia. They prided themselves on nuanced, multi-layered linguistic systems that could convey complex ideas with minimal misunderstanding. Humanity seemed to have developed an entirely different approach. Their communications were direct, yet infinitely complex. A single message could simultaneously serve multiple purposes: diplomatic outreach, strategic positioning, technological demonstration. Each word was a calculated move in a sophisticated interstellar chess game. Tactical communication modules began breaking down the patterns. Humans did not just communicate, they positioned themselves. Every transmission was a carefully constructed statement of capability, intent, and potential response. Most intriguing was their approach to potential conflict. Where the Concordants saw conflict as something to be avoided, humans seemed to view it as a complex problem to be solved. Their communication channels revealed multiple layers of prepared responses, each more sophisticated than the last. The vessels maintained a formation that was itself a form of communication. Their positioning suggested multiple potential scenarios: diplomatic engagement, defensive posture, potential conflict resolution. Each vessel seemed capable of instantaneous reconfiguration, a living demonstration of adaptability. They are not preparing for a single outcome, Commander Lix observed. They are preparing for every possible outcome. Psychological analysis modules worked overtime. Human communication was not just about information exchange. It was a comprehensive demonstration of capability, intent, and potential response. Each transmission carried an underlying message: we are prepared, completely and absolutely. The Prometheus and its accompanying vessels continued to maintain their position with a calm that suggested total control. No wasted energy, no unnecessary movements. Every aspect of their presence was a carefully calculated statement. Cultural historians would later describe this moment as a fundamental shift in galactic understanding. Humanity was not just another spacefaring civilization. They were a species that had turned preparation into an art form. Their communication approach suggested a civilization that had learned hard lessons through centuries of conflict, technological challenge, and survival. Each message was a refined product of historical experience, diplomatic, yet unmistakably prepared for any potential alternative. The Concordants had developed communication protocols for peaceful engagement, for cultural exchange, for understanding. Protocols that had worked with hundreds of spacefaring civilizations. Humanity seemed to be writing an entirely new set of rules. They are telling us exactly who they are, Captain Vex murmured, more to herself than to anyone else on the bridge. Without saying everything, the universe seemed to hold its breath. 5 human vessels waited. Complex communication systems hummed with potential. Thousands of years of diplomatic history balanced on the edge of a single moment. First contact was no longer just a possibility. It was an inevitability. And humanity was prepared, completely and absolutely, for whatever might come. Negotiation was not a word that accurately described what happened next. It was more of a carefully orchestrated dance of technological and diplomatic capabilities. The Concordants' leadership found themselves in an unprecedented position. Faced with the very real possibility of total technological and strategic disadvantage, they did something they had never done in their entire history. They prepared to genuinely negotiate. Captain Elena Rodriguez's voice cut through the quantum communication channels with surgical precision. "We are not interested in conflict," she began, "but we are equally uninterested in misunderstandings." Each word was a carefully placed diplomatic instrument, not a threat, not a promise, but a clear statement of human intentions. Captain Zara Vex studied the communication with professional intensity. The human approach was unlike anything in the Concordance's extensive diplomatic archives. Where most species would use elaborate linguistic dance, humans offered a direct, almost mathematical approach to potential cooperation. Commander Lix's neural tendrils created complex patterns of analytical interest. "They are offering a framework," he observed, not requesting permission. The negotiation, if it could be called that, revealed the fundamental difference between human and Concordance approaches. The Concordance had spent millennia developing consensus-based diplomatic protocols. Humans seemed to view diplomacy as a strategic problem to be solved with the same precision they applied to technological challenges. Territorial boundaries were discussed not as rigid lines, but as dynamic zones of potential interaction. Communication protocols were established with a level of detail that suggested multiple layers of potential scenario planning. Each proposed agreement came with comprehensive contingency frameworks that anticipated potential misunderstandings. "We propose a mutual recognition protocol," Captain Rodriguez continued, "based on clear, measurable parameters of respect, technological exchange, and defined interaction boundaries." It was not a request. It was not even truly a proposal. It was a carefully constructed framework that left minimal room for misinterpretation. The Concordance leadership found themselves in an unusual position. They were not dictating terms. They were not even truly negotiating. They were being presented with a comprehensive approach to potential galactic interaction that left them with remarkably few alternatives. Cultural analysis modules worked overtime. This was not traditional diplomacy. This was a sophisticated demonstration of human capabilities, technological, strategic, and diplomatic. Every proposed parameter came with multiple layers of verification. Communication channels would be established with redundant systems. Technological exchanges would follow precisely defined protocols. Potential conflict scenarios were mapped with mathematical precision. "We understand the historical context of first contact," Rodriguez's transmission continued. "Our intention is clear cooperation, balanced with absolute preparedness." The subtle emphasis on absolute preparedness was not lost on the Concordance bridge crew. It was a reminder, a gentle but unmistakable indication that while humans sought cooperation, they were equally prepared for any alternative. Commander Lix turned to Captain Vex, his neural tendrils creating a pattern that suggested a mix of professional respect and genuine fascination. "They are not asking for our agreement," he observed. "They are informing us of how interaction will occur." The Prometheus and its accompanying vessels maintained their position with a calm that suggested complete confidence. No unnecessary movements, no wasted energy. Each vessel a living demonstration of human capabilities. Diplomatic historians would later describe this moment as a fundamental shift in galactic interaction. Humanity was not seeking approval. They were establishing a new framework of interspecies communication. The Concordance had two choices: accept the proposed framework, or face the comprehensive preparedness of a species that had turned potential conflict into a sophisticated art form. In the vast darkness of space, 5 human vessels waited, not aggressively, not threateningly, but with a calm certainty that suggested they had already calculated every potential outcome. First contact was no longer about discovery. It was about understanding a species that viewed the universe as a complex problem to be solved. The galactic records would forever mark this moment as a turning point in interstellar understanding. Decades passed, and the story of humanity's first contact with the Concordance became more than just a historical account. It transformed into a whispered legend that echoed through communication networks of countless spacefaring civilizations. Humanity was not just another species to be cataloged and understood. They were a force that demanded a complete recalibration of existing galactic paradigms. The Concordance, once the most sophisticated diplomatic force in known space, found itself fundamentally transformed. Their approach to interstellar relations had to be completely reimagined. Every diplomatic protocol, every established communication framework, underwent comprehensive review. Younger species listened to the account with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. How could a civilization seemingly emerge from the galactic periphery and so completely reshape interstellar interaction? Historical archives revealed the complexity of human development. They were not a species that had achieved technological supremacy through peaceful progression. Their journey was marked by conflict, innovation, and an almost supernatural ability to transform challenges into opportunities. Technological exchanges began slowly, carefully. Each interaction with humanity was approached with a level of preparation that bordered on reverence. The humans never appeared aggressive, but their preparedness was a constant reminder of their capabilities. Scientific outposts began to document the unique human approach to exploration and interaction. They did not simply study new environments. They understood them with a depth that suggested an almost intuitive connection to the fundamental nature of adaptation. Planetary development projects demonstrated their extraordinary capabilities. Environments that would have defeated other species became proving grounds for human innovation. Harsh desert worlds, frozen planets, asteroid belts, each became an opportunity for technological and social transformation. The initial moment of first contact became a case study in galactic communication strategies. Military academies across multiple star systems analyzed every transmission, every strategic positioning of the human vessels. What had seemed like a simple encounter was revealed to be a comprehensive demonstration of capability. Diplomatic training programs were completely redesigned. The old models of consensus and gradual negotiation gave way to more dynamic, adaptive approaches inspired by human communication strategies. Technological research took unexpected turns. Species that had been content with incremental innovations began to adopt more aggressive, problem-solving approaches. The human model of viewing challenges as opportunities began to influence entire civilizational development strategies. The Concordance's historical records showed a fascinating progression. What had initially been perceived as a potential threat transformed into a complex, multifaceted relationship of mutual understanding and carefully balanced interaction. Humans never sought to dominate, but their very existence challenged every established galactic paradigm. Communication networks began to tell stories, not just of human technological achievements, but of their approach to existence itself. A species that had transformed nearly impossible challenges into moments of profound growth. A civilization that viewed the universe not as a fixed system, but as a complex problem to be solved. Younger species began to study human history with an almost religious intensity. Their approach to survival, to innovation, to interaction became a new model of potential development. The 5 vessels that had appeared during that first encounter became symbolic. Not of military might, but of a comprehensive approach to existence, each vessel a living demonstration of preparation, adaptability, and potential. Diplomatic historians would debate the significance of this moment for generations. Was it a turning point in galactic evolution? A fundamental shift in how civilizations understood themselves and their potential? The universe seemed to have found a new benchmark of potential. Humanity continued to exist on the galactic stage, not as conquerors, not as diplomats in the traditional sense, but as a constant reminder that the universe was far more complex, far more wonderful than any single species could comprehend. In the vast darkness of space, their legacy continued. A civilization that had turned the impossible into an art form. A species that viewed challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. First contact was never truly about the moment of meeting. It was about understanding the profound potential of existence itself.